Getting started with Node.js, Section 2. In this section, we'll look at Node.js, what it is and why it's important for this course. First, let's look at what Node.js is. So Node is the letter N in the mean stack. Even though it's the last letter doesn't mean it's the least important. In fact, it's probably the most important ones. So Node.js is an open source JavaScript runtime environment. Notice it is a runtime environment. It's not a language, nor an operating system or a server. It is just an environment. It's built on Google Chrome's V8 JavaScript engine, the same engine that runs or that powers the Google Chrome web browser. It uses JavaScript as the main server-side language. Now that's pretty cool, and it's a bonus for those of you who already know JavaScript because you have one language to master and you can use it to create web applications using just JavaScript. And because JavaScript is a single-threaded language, so Node was built around that. That means it uses this single-threaded model. And we'll take a look at that and compare that to a traditional or a multi-threaded model and see what they look like. Also, the neat thing about Node.js is this thing called the asynchronous environment, which is non-blocking execution of some code that will prevent your code from stalling. So this is something that is really nice in Node.js. And last but not least, it has this built-in HTTP server library. Again, because Node is not a server, but it provides this library so that you can create your own server. Unlike Apache or the Windows IIS, which already built for you, you get to build your own here. So let's take a look at these two models here. So the first is this multi-threaded model, or the traditional model. Let's take a look at this following an analogy. Say that you are in a grocery store or a bank or a concert venue, wherever it is, and usually you have a bunch of people there, right? And then when you want to, purchase tickets, or check out or go to a teller, you would go to those lines, and however many lines they have, that's your limit. So you go to the teller. In this example here, it can process your transaction for you. If it's a really easy one, that's pretty quick. But sometimes you might need some more information. So when that's the case, those tellers might end up processing more information in the back. Like they might need a manager's authorization, or process some data, and so on. So when all these lines are filled up and all these tellers or cashiers are waiting, then the whole system comes to a halt, right? So what do? You end up opening more lines, hiring more cashiers or tellers, and so on. So it becomes what do you call a CPU intensive system in the computer analogy here. Okay, so this is the multi-threaded model. Now let's take a look at the single-threaded model. So same group of people here, for example, but instead of having a lot of people doing the processing, you just have one person, right, that does the handling of this information here. So at a bank or a store, doesn't matter, one teller, one cashier, and it'll process each customer's information. If the information or the request is really simple, it processes it right away and it's done. If any of those transactions require some really extensive information, then that will be delegated to a group of people in the back, and they can process those data while the customers are waiting. The teller or the cashier can process the next request. Okay, and then at the back, they can process those information independently in the back end until that's done. They come back to the cashier or the teller, and then the teller will provide that information back to the user, their clients. So in this case, you don't have anything that would cause the line to stop, because as one customer is waiting, the next customer can be served. And so you pump all these requests and responses really quickly in the front. And then so now that's a single-threaded model that Node.js uses. Let's take another model here that is a little bit closer to the Node.js event loop. So here again, the red circle is the event loop. It's a single-threaded, non-blocking model, right? So one thread processes all those information. On the front end, we have a user. we're a client and we have some services in the back, like databases and the files, systems and networks and so on. So when a request comes to the environment, to the event loop, it will look at that request and see what kind of request it is. If it's a really simple one, it sends right back. If it's something that requires a long-running operations like a database query or file system, then it will pass that to the back to be processed. So in the back, you have what's called a thread pool that will process all these long-running operations. And then while that's happening in the back, you have more requests coming in. And again, any long-run operations can be passed to the back. So we all process in the back until all those are returned. So all these callbacks return, then that can be a process and then send it back to the user. So this is the typical Node.js model that it uses single-threaded non-blocking feature here. And I'll be referring to this model quite a bit throughout this course. So make sure you have a pretty good grasp of what this model looks like. Now that we know what Node.js is and what its model looks like, in the next video we'll install the latest version of Node.js.